Good evening, you're watching Just the News. I'm Faye D'Souza. Thank you for joining us. Let's get straight to tonight's headlines. The Supreme Court came down heavily today on the central government and the state governments of the National Capital Region while hearing their submission on the air pollution crisis. Now, you know, Delhi is plagued right now with terrible pollution that many doctors have said will cause serious and permanent damage to lungs, especially of small children. The Chief Justice, when hearing the case, remarked, and I quote, "What I'm observing as a judge is that the bureaucracy is completely developed a sort of inertia. They don't want to take a decision how to stop a fire, seize a vehicle. This court has to say. Use sprinklers or water buckets. We have to say. This is the attitude developed by the executive. It is unfortunate." End quote. The court said that it will take a call on putting in place harsher measures to improve the air quality index levels in the national capital after the 21st of November. The Supreme Court said the government must persuade farmers against burning stubble. Chief Justice Ramana said, we do not want to penalize farmers. We have already asked the central government to pursue and request farmers not to burn stubble at least for a week. As the blame game for data for these farm fires erupted, the Supreme Court pulled up officials saying that, and I quote, "Debates on TV are causing more pollution than any other sources. Everyone has their own agenda. We're trying to work out a solution here." End quote. On Monday, the central government told the court that the farm fires have only 10% of the share of the national capital's severe pollution problem. Meanwhile, schools have been closed in the national capital region, neighboring cities, and work from home has been advised for 50% of staff in government offices. Remember, in the Delhi region, most of the offices are government or linked to government. All construction activity has been halted until the 21st of November. Staying with pollution, the central government today expressed its unwillingness before the Supreme Court to ask its employees to work from home and instead advised its employees in the national capital to resort to carpooling instead. In this regard, it submitted that in the recent past, several governmental functions were impacted because of lockdowns of COVID-19 substantially for a long period of time and had pan-India ramifications. The centre said that the number of vehicles used by the central government for business is not significant. Instead, the Department of Personnel and Training of the Government of India has issued an advisory for central government officers and staff for carpooling and sharing of vehicles as much as possible to reduce the pollution. There's a trigger warning I must issue to you before I go into the next story. Details of the story are extremely distressing. A horrifying incident has been reported by the Hindustan Times coming out of Madhya Pradesh, where a 55-year-old man allegedly has raped and killed his own daughter, who was 23 years old, for apparently marrying outside of the caste. The father accompanied the daughter to a forest nearby to bury her dead baby who had died of pneumonia. He was upfront about killing his daughter. He told his son that he had done so, but he refused, but he did not mention the rape. The next day, the two of them also told the older daughter that he had killed her sibling. According to Hindustan Times, the police said, and I quote, during interrogation, the father said he was looking for a chance to kill his daughter and she got in touch with him. When her child died, he said he couldn't control her anger. He reportedly said villagers used to mock him and many relatives stopped inviting his family over because of his daughter's intercaste marriage, which is what made him very angry. The Supreme Court has appointed Rakesh Kumar Jain, former Punjab and Haryana High Court judge, to monitor the investigation into the Lakhimpur Kheri incident to ensure transparency, fairness and absolute impartiality. The court has reconstituted the special investigative team where 3 senior IPS officers have been appointed to it. Remember, the court actually said that it had no faith in how the previous SIT was actually functioning, and this was the SIT put together by the Uttar Pradesh police and government. The court now has appointed a judge to monitor the Lakhimpur Kheri investigation. During a debate at the UN Security Council, a counselor in India's permanent mission to the UN, Kajal Butt, said terrorists enjoy a free pass in Pakistan while minorities' lives are turned upside down. She said, and I quote, "I'm constrained to take the floor once again to respond to some frivolous remarks made by the representative of Pakistan earlier today. This is not the first time the representative of Pakistan has misused this platform. She went on to say that terrorists enjoy a free pass while the lives of ordinary people, especially those belonging to minority communities, are turned upside down in Pakistan. Former Mumbai Police Commissioner Param Bir Singh and two others today were declared proclaimed offenders by a court in Mumbai. This is in connection with an extortion case filed against Param Bir Singh by the city police that he used to head until recently. The Mumbai police on Saturday approached the magistrates court seeking to declare its own former commissioner Param Bir Singh as a proclaimed absconding offender in connection with the extortion case registered by the Goregaon police, along with two other accused, Vinay Singh and Riaz Bhatti, stating they were absconding and could not be traced. The city police will now paste the notice on their known addresses and publish it in newspapers, directing them to appear before it. If they fail to appear, the police will initiate a process of attachment of their properties. Now, this is really unusual and shocking for the former police commissioner to be declared an absconding offender, as his own former police force is on the lookout for him. According to PTI and a report today, families of two civilians killed in Hyderpora in Kashmir in an encounter in Srinagar held a protest today demanding justice for the victims and the return of their bodies. Controversy erupted on Monday in an encounter in Hyderpora following conflicting claims about two deceased civilians, as their family members contested the police's charge that they were terror associates. According to the police, a Pakistani terrorist and his local associate, Muhammad Amir, along with two other civilians, and this is where the question arises, Altaf Bhatt and Mudassir Gul, were killed in an encounter. So there were four people where there was an illegal call center and a terror hideout allegedly being run. Now, this is what the police have said. The families of these two civilians, Altaf Bhatt and Mudassir Gul, have said that they were in fact not associated in any way with any sort of terrorism, and they're demanding justice and investigation and the return of the bodies of their loved ones. The Supreme Court today asked the Tripura Police not to initiate any coercive action, which means no arrest, against the lawyers and a journalist who were booked under UAPA, which is the Strict Terror Act, for their fact-finding reports and tweets on communal violence in the state. Now, remember, the police in Tripura actually booked several people under UAPA who tweeted about the violence that was taking place in Tripura, including journalists. The petitioner said that the state's effort was to monopolize the flow of information and facts from the affected areas by invoking UAPA against the members of civil society, including advocates and journalists who had made an effort to bring those facts in relation to the violence out in the public domain. Quick look at our COVID numbers, which we still do. India reported 10,197 new COVID cases, 301 deaths in the last 24 hours. India's active caseload was 1.28 lakh. This is the lowest in about 500 days. Our daily positivity rate has stayed below 1%. Kerala reporting 6,849 new COVID cases. A night curfew has been imposed in Jammu between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. because of an increased number of COVID cases. This was imposed on this from the 17th of November until further orders. District Magistrate has said that there is a steady rise of COVID cases and the positivity rate is now beyond 0.2%. Meanwhile, Madhya Pradesh has decided to lift all COVID-related restrictions in the state as the pandemic situation is what they call under control for now. As per a directive from the government, there will be no night curfew starting tonight. Malls, restaurants, gyms will be allowed to operate in full capacity. However, all activities will have to be performed maintaining COVID protocols. Let's take a look now at news coming in from around the world. According to state media, Myanmar's leader Aung San Suu Kyi has been charged now with election fraud and lawless actions by the military. The leader is facing several other charges, including spreading false inflammatory information that could disturb public order, smuggling a walkie-talkie into the country. She's also accused of breaching the Official Secrets Act, of corruption, of breaching the National Disaster Law, of breaking coronavirus restrictions in the run-up to last year's elections. Remember, the military declared on the 1st of February this year that Aung San Suu Kyi, along with other leaders, were corrupt and they were arrested. The military then, after that, seized power of the country. At least one person has been killed and several others feared dead when a huge storm hit the Pacific Northwest of Canada, destroying highways and leaving tens and thousands of people in Canada and the US without power. The flooding has closed several highways in and around the greater Vancouver area, a major coastal city that is home to nearly 2.5 million people. Port authorities have announced on Tuesday that they have suspended rail routes. Vancouver's port moves about 550 million Canadian dollars worth of cargo every day. UK's inflation surged to 4.2, the highest in 10 years in the run-up to Christmas. According to the Office of National Statistics, this is mainly due to the very high fuel and energy prices, but also the cost of second-hand cars and eating out went up sharply. Inflation is up sharply since COVID restrictions ended in the summer and the economy reopened. According to the Bank of England, it may have to raise interest rates in the coming months to tackle the surging prices. An update now from the world of sports. The International Olympic Committee has issued a new set of guidelines for transgender athletes. According to the guidelines, athletes will not have to undergo hormone level modifications to compete. This comes after New Zealand weightlifter Laurel Hubbard became the first transgender athlete to compete in the Tokyo Olympics. The 10-point document, which was prepared over the course of 2 years in consultation with more than 250 athletes and other stakeholders, will be rolled out after the Beijing Winter Games next year, replacing the guidelines that were earlier issued back in 2015. Two-time Olympic gold medalist PV Sindhu and fellow Indian Lakshya entered the second round of the Indonesia Masters Super 750 on Tuesday. Sindhu defeated her Thai counterpart and Lakshya defeated his Japanese contender. Lakshya will now face two-time world champion Kento Momota in the second round. One piece of, let's say, positive, cheery news before we leave you for today is good news for Potterheads. Remember, it turned about 20 recently. Warner Brothers has announced that the Harry Potter stars of Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Rupert Grint are reuniting with other cast members of the blockbuster film franchise for the special 20th anniversary TV retrospective. It will be broadcast on the 1st of January on streaming platform HBO Max. That's something to look forward to. 20 years it has been since we got Harry Potter. That brings me to the end of the news. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a conversation up on our YouTube page that I would like you to take a look at. We're taking a very close look at freedom of speech specifically. Whether it is Kangana Ranaut or Veer Das, they are both given freedom of speech and expression by our constitution. What then do the threats and the FIRs really mean? That is on our YouTube page to take a look. Thanks for watching.